You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Good morning. This is Pastor Shirley Hood. I'm coming to you on a special edition of Reflections TV. We are getting ready for our Peace, Love, Judah Jam Festival that is going to be held in September. Our theme for the festival is called Good Health Over COVID. On this special episode, we're going to have Dr. Lovern Moseley to sit and talk about mental illness. 1 out of 20 Americans in the last couple of years, which was in 2020, had experienced mental illness. It is very unfortunate, to say the least, that a lot of our loved ones, friends, neighbors, even family members will take their lives due to mental illness. So on this special edition of Reflections TV, we will get valuable resource, ways that will help individuals, even our loved ones, concerning mental illness. Sit and watch, learn, gain experience and knowledge on how we can save a life. Thank you.
Hello, I wanted to share a few resources with you regarding access to mental health and some things that you can do on your own as you're waiting to get started with a clinician. Initially, you can reach out to your primary care physician to request a referral for a therapist. You can also reach out to your insurance company for a list of therapists that are covered by your insurance. And the other thing to be mindful of is that if you feel that you are a danger to yourself or to others, please call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room for an evaluation. One place that you can start your search would be on Psychology Today, and that's just psychologytoday.com. And you're able to search using multiple filters, including location as well as diagnosis. You can also find out if clinicians are accepting new patients right now, or if they are doing in-person or virtual sessions. If you're specifically looking for clinicians who are of minority descent and are treating minority individuals, you can also do a search on Therapy for Black Girls, and you can find a therapist in your area. They have a pretty large database of clinicians nationwide. The same thing goes for Therapy for Black Men. You can also do a search with them as well to search specifically for clinicians who are serving men or addressing men's issues. There's also the Black Men Heal website that has a load of resources, and they also provide access to mental health treatment for individuals at little or no cost. And I believe that they also have a nationwide search. I have also included my group practice, Empowerment Counseling and Psychotherapy Center. We have locations in Rhode Island as well as in Massachusetts. Our Rhode Island location is located at 280 Broadway in Providence, and our Stoughton location is 1629 Central Street in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Our contact number is 866-754-4973, and you can try extension 103 or 143 to get a hold of the front office to get connected with a clinician who has availability in either office. And we also treat a multitude of issues. I've also included the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and this is a 24/7 lifeline that's available for those who are having thoughts of suicide. Again, if you feel that you are in imminent danger, you should call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room for immediate help and assistance. I've also included the National Sexual Assault Hotline, and the number is 800-656-HOPE. And this is also a 24/7 hotline for any individual who has experienced sexual assault. In the Boston area, we have the Boston Area Rape Crisis Center hotline, and they have a 24/7 hotline as well as a chat feature online as well. In the Rhode Island area, there is Day One, and they're listed as the only agency in Rhode Island organized specifically to deal with issues of sexual assault. And they have a regular number as well as a 24-hour hotline, which is 800-494-8100. We also have the Parent Stress Line, which is also available 24/7 for confidential and anonymous conversations with trained counselors to help regarding anything involving parenting and the stress that you may be feeling. Additional things that can be included or you may find helpful would be Shine, which is a self care toolkit app that you can locate online or on your phone. There are also multiple mindful apps that we have listed here. There's Calm and Headspace, as well as Smiling Mind. I've also included Liberate, which is the first meditation app for the BIPOC community. We also have Abide, which is a Christian Bible and sleep meditation app. And I've also included the Mindful Muslim, which is a meditation app for the Muslim community. For those who are struggling specifically with just feeling overloaded, there are several things that you can do to get into a space of calm. You can use scents that you may enjoy or purchase a weighted blanket to just help you feel grounded and get to, into a more relaxed state. Also, being able to get some more sleep or using sleep masks or making sure that your room is pretty dark. Other people have also found nature sounds helpful if they're feeling really overloaded, using noise canceling headphones to just shut everything out. Guided meditation is also very helpful. Overall, for stress management, things that you can just do on your own, there's some practical ways to reduce stress. You want to make sure that you're eating a balanced diet. Meditation and prayer is helpful. Staying active, including exercise, connecting with supportive people, whether that's friends or through your church community, spending time outdoors, as well as making sure that you're getting enough time to rest. Journaling is something that's also very helpful. And so you want to take some time to be able to just get through some of the things that may be on your mind. More recently, there's been a guided healing journal for Black men that's come out by Brennan Allen Steele. And so I just wanted to include that and share it with you.
Welcome, everyone. This is Pastor Shirley Hood coming to you on Reflections TV. Listen, we all seen the video. We've seen it and how it brought so many resources to what's going on in our world today. We know we have been impacted globally with this deadly virus. and so many other things that has happened to all people. But on this special edition of Reflections TV, on this Good Health Over COVID TV series that is sponsored by the Peace, Love, Judy Jan Festival, we're going to be talking to a licensed psychologist that will provide us information that will be so helpful for those who are struggling with mental illness. I am so delighted to have with me my co-host, who is going to be my host for the next 3 episodes. And I am so delighted to have her on board. And please let us welcome Chantel P. Walls. Chantel, thank you so much for being my co-host today.
Thank you for having me.
It is such a delight that we are doing this special edition of Reflections TV regarding mental health. And we want to come into your home, talk about those things that matter, talk about those things that could be helpful. So on this special episode, we want to introduce to you Dr. Lovern Moseley, who is a licensed psychologist, clinical assistant professor of the psychiatry at Boston University Medical Center, CEO of Empowerment Counseling and Psychotherapy Center. Dr. Lovern, thank you so much for being on this show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted to be here and to just provide more information on how people can address their mental health concerns during this very difficult time.
It has been very difficult for a lot of people who is going through the struggle with mental illness. We had just learned of the famous Naomi Judd, who some would say, we have reason to believe she took her life at the age of 76 years old, who struggled with mental illness really, really bad. We find that very difficult to comprehend losing someone of that magnitude. And she was famous at what she had done, but privately she was going through the struggle, although she shared with the world what she was battling. So on today, not only we have questions from our viewers concerning this topic, but we find that it needs to be discussed because it's happening everywhere.
Right.
It's happening globally. And so we want to ask those questions that are so meaningful. So on today, our co-host Chantel P. Walls, who is the spokesperson for the Peace, Love, Judy Jan Festival. Just so you know, the Peace, Love, Judy Jan Festival is going to be hosting an in-person festival on September 10th at the Honor Central Park Playground located in East Providence, Rhode Island. We're going to be there from 12 to 5 p.m. Listen, you want to attend this grand event. Not only is going to spread awareness in regards to mental health, but it's going to bring awareness to all the things that we're going to be talking about throughout the year. Listen, it's very vital that we have these conversations because we need to help those who are going through the struggle. Jesus said in his word, he said, I will leave the 99 to chase after that one. So if we could do that, that would be very impactful. So on today, I believe Chantel have a question for Dr. Lovern concerning about mental health.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, it's so exciting to have you here and to be able to talk about mental health, what mental health is about, and acknowledging that in our society it now exists because for so long we have not given it a voice or spoken about it. So one of my questions is, with COVID kind of heightening mental health awareness and mental health illnesses and what's out there, what are some of the signs that we can look for in our loved ones and our friends that can, lead to symptoms of mental health?
Well, there's a wide variety of things that you can look for. The primary thing is whether there has been a significant change in their level of functioning. If you are, you're used to them being a certain way and all of a sudden they're seeming more down, more withdrawn, they're sleeping more, they seem to be more lethargic, they're not doing things that they used to enjoy. Those are, some telltale signs that they may be experiencing some symptoms of depression. Now, Pastor Shirley, you had mentioned Naomi Judd, right? So this is, something even more significant in terms of symptoms of suicide or someone at risk of suicide. If people are now saying that they don't feel that there's a reason to live anymore, they feel that they're a burden on their loved ones, or they're just a burden to society. Those are things that you want to pay attention to as well. If they start giving things away or talking about it, being better off if they were not here, those are also some signs and symptoms that you want to pay attention to, because then there's more imminent risk that they may do something to harm themselves. What we see in individuals who are also older is that there's a heightened suicide rate among the elderly, especially if they're going through a lot of physical pain, chronic pain. We want to make sure that we're aware of that and that they're receiving the care that they need to deal with those things. But if they've been dealing with it for years and years and years, it gets to a point where they feel they just can't tolerate it anymore. With COVID, we were seeing heightened discussions about mental health. We're seeing a lot of kids who are also struggling with mental health issues. So we want to pay attention to our kids who are not going outside to play as much anymore. They're not engaging with their friends. They're not talking as much. They're spending a lot of time just holed up in their rooms, just on social media. They just don't seem like themselves, and so that is a major telltale sign. You want to start a conversation at that point.
I totally agree. Especially when you have children who has been impacted when they had to go through distant learning. That was very challenging for a lot of children who was going through that struggle, especially my children who had to spend at least a year to do distant learning. They was restricted from being in person. And so it really takes a toll on our children. And what do you say that as parents, because some of us are parents, I'm a parent, when you do see those signs, how do you be there for your children? What are some of the ways?
Right. And for a lot of the parents that I treat, and a lot of the kids that I treat, it's important to at least have open communication with your children. That's the basis. At the start of anything, you want to make sure that at least you're engaging with your kid, you're paying attention to what's going on with them. Because oftentimes we get so busy with all of the, just the things of life that you may miss certain signs. And all along, this kid has probably been crying out for a while, that they're struggling or hurting, right? So you want to make sure that you're spending time communicating with them, right? Get them out of the room,
Right.
okay? Get undisturbed time away from the distractions with social media and the phones, and that includes the parents too, putting those things aside to be able to spend that time for them to be re-engaged with you. They spent so much time, going through having to be on Chromebooks and things. It kind of created a bit of distance, even within families, because you're spending so much time, alone, trying to get work done. So the suggestion that I have is that you try to engage more, at least at the outset. If you feel that your child is not really engaging, or you're not really getting much from them, then it's important to seek professional help, right? And you can at least start out, just as we had discussed in the resource video, that you can start at least with your primary care physician. Where can I get a referral so that I can, have my child see a therapist? Or even if you start with the school counselor, that's another option to at least try and pull out what may be going on with them.
So, I seen a show, in regards to a parent losing their son. He was age 13. And they said, and you tell us, that they did not really see the signs. He was in his room majority of the time. This is during distance learning, and all of a sudden, he's gone.
Yeah.
So my question is, they had to see these signs. Do you believe they had to see it? Because they said they really didn't see it.
And that's possible too. You know, there are kids who are, you know, suffering in silence. They don't want to burden their parents, or they feel, you know, guilty, right? So when there's expression of even guilt that I'm creating a problem, or I'm becoming a problem, you know, within my home, that's a very big telltale sign. But again, the thing that I would stress is the engagement. How much time is being spent where you're having uninterrupted time communicating with your child? Are you involved in their life? Because a lot of times, if you as a parent or caregiver is going through you're going through your own struggle, you may not pick up on certain things. Okay, and so it's important to also pay attention to your own mental health. What's going on for you as the adult, right? If there's conflict in the home between caregivers, is that also something that's contributing? And it's making you more distant and not as available to be able to attend to what may be going on for your child. And it's not to place blame, but it's just to increase awareness around what's necessary so that you can pay attention if there is any shift in signs. A lot of parents, they're single parents, they're working a lot. Kids are left, you know, to their own devices to try and, you know, in some ways, you know, take care of things on their own, and they may not feel that there's a space for them to, you know, come and share with their parent.
So what do you say to that busy parent? Like you said, they work constantly. They're working to pay the bills, right? To pay the rent, to make sure that everyone is taken care of in that house. What do you say to that busy parent that need to stop because they're so involved in doing what it is best, right, for the household, but they're not really doing what is best for their children? So what do you say to that busy parent?
And, you know, everyone's going to have to do what they have to do, right, to make sure that they're taking care of the bills, that they're taking care of their families, they're doing what they need to do. But sometimes we have to sit back and reevaluate, you know, what's really important here? What really deserves my energy, right? And even though you can't necessarily stop your job because the bills are still coming in, there's still obligations that you have, we do have to reevaluate, you know, what's going on with the rest of the time in my day? Are there areas that are there some things that I can put aside so that I can make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to take care of my family and take care of myself? Right? Am I making sure that I'm getting enough rest? Am I making sure that at least a few meals a week we're able to have together to be able to sit and talk? You may not be able to make a full 180-degree change, but try for the 90, you know? So if that means that, okay, you know, here's something new that I can make sure that there's at least one meal that we're having together so that we can sit and talk with the phones down, then let's do that. With the TV off, then let's do that. Is there a show that my child is watching that I can now get involved in and engaged with so that we can have a discussion around something that's interesting to them?
Great answer, Dr. Lovern. Oh, this information, y'all, let me tell you something. Please receive all this, what you're hearing. This is information that we all need to hear, especially as a busy parent like myself. To hear this is very important, that we need to take time out, not only for ourselves, but for our children as well. So we want to, ask the question from one of our viewers who has submitted in a question since we're talking about our children. The question is, can you suggest techniques we can teach children to self-soothe during trigger situation on stress or anxiety.
So this is something, when we're talking about self-soothing, it's something that starts like from the cradle, right? How, do you may allow a baby to cry a little bit to know that, okay, well, you're fed, it's, you're changed, it's time to sleep, like you'll be okay, you'll be able to, calm yourself. It's something that's taught, from that age. But for a child who may be, a little bit more volatile or, may be a little bit more intense with their emotions, a lot of times it is incumbent upon the parent to pay attention to the telltale signs for when a kid might get ready to, have an explosion or go off, right? So before the episode happens or before the explosion, it's important to talk about with your child what the expected behavior is. If you have a child when you guys are going to the park and it's time to leave the park and they don't want to leave the park and you're dragging them out of the park, before you even get to the park, there have to be discussions about what's going to be expected. You want to be able to give your child warning times about when we're getting ready to leave and what's going to happen when you get ready to leave. And you may have to start out with a reward initially, right? For children who are anxious, you want to at least start out preparing them about what to expect in new situations. There's nothing wrong with being able to prep a child, so you have to do the preparation first. A lot of times with busy parents, you're like, I shouldn't have to, tell them all the details of what it is that's going on. We're just going, and you're dragging them along. But if they're on the more shy side, and they have difficulty just engaging in social situations, you want to be mindful of that too. And then probably give them something that they can take with them that may be a little bit of a distraction for them if they are, if you're taking them somewhere that's not familiar with them. So you want to be aware and mindful that, hey, here are some proclivities of my child. I recognize this about my child. How can I now help them to be able to occupy themselves? And then also know if you're starting to feel nervous. Recognize that you're safe. I'm here with you. Let's do some breathing. You can practice breathing before the anxious situation arises. And so then you can remind them of some of the skills, some of the coping strategies that they can do, right, to help them to feel okay. We've seen a lot of kids with fidget toys that they may have in schools, or they may use them in with occupational therapy in their schools. They can also have a little fidget in their pocket if they're feeling a little nervous, something that they can kind of rub on that will help them to kind of calm down or feel less anxious. But primarily, it's being able to have that discussion before the explosion or the incident happens, so they have something in their toolbox to take with them.
Right. That's so good. I'm hearing you say a lot about setting ground rules, limitations, boundaries, because I've worked with children as well with behaviors, as well as, ADHD, so ABA therapy.
Yes.
So it's really that, okay, we're gonna, setting them up for success. Setting our children up for success is what it's about. Having their preferred items, setting a routine, setting, again, those ground rules, those limitations, so they know what to expect. And even if, routine, day-to-day processes, things happen, even if they're thrown off their routine, how to help them understand in a manner in which they can receive is what I'm hearing you say. So that's amazing. And even taking some of those techniques. We may not all be therapists and psychologists and things like that, but what we can do is coach. What we can do is teach. So that's excellent advice. So another question we have is, as we know, mental health affects different populations, and we've spoken about our children. We've touched a little bit on our elderly. One of our viewers asked a question: do you have suggestions for things adults can do to help the children in their lives? Or maybe adults as well, adults for themselves, so friends, families, as we touched upon children. So what are some things that maybe adults can do for themselves or for other significant others or loved ones in their lives?
You know, what I would say, you know, because we can only control ourselves, right? We have to take responsibility for ourselves. And so that may require taking stock of the areas where we're feeling deficient or we're feeling depleted. There are some simple things that we take for granted, right? In terms of self-care, things that are essential to, you know, our daily functioning, things like sleep, things like nutrition. You know, we're doing things so much on the run that we're not really taking the care that's needed to honor this temple that we're in.
Wow.
Right? And so we have to be kind to ourselves. So it does require some stepping back and taking stock, because there can be some simple steps that can really help to get us grounded and feeling solid and feeling stable, and then having the capacity to come up with a plan that's going to work. But if you're running, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not working, you're not really going to get anywhere.
I love when you said we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yes.
That really triggered me, because I am the kind of parent that I'm doing so many things. Listen, I have a plate full of things going on, you know, aside from being a full-time mom, a full-time job, the ministry, work. I mean, I do it all, but having that moment for yourself, right? I do a whole lot of praying, not just, you know, for the benefit of others, but for myself, so that I could take care of my loved ones, right? So one of the things that we do need to do is be kind to ourselves. I love that. That's, I think, you know, we don't see that enough, you know, in adults, you know, because we have a responsibility that we carry, right? So being kind to ourselves is one of the general things that we need to do. So I really, that was really impactful what you said.
And when we think about our loved ones, they have agency over themselves, right?
Yes.
So we can't necessarily be the ones who are always looking after them if we're not looking after ourselves. Right? So we have to put our mask on first. Every time you fly, you hear that, you know, you put your own mask on first, then you're able to help. The other thing is being able to recognize the boundaries. If they don't necessarily want the help, there isn't much that you're going to do. You're going to be depleting yourself trying to get someone else to change, right? When you need to be focusing on you. You're expending so much energy in areas that, you know, it's not even being received.
Yes.
You know, so sometimes we have to stop and take stock.
Yes.
Where's our energy being focused?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Are we focusing our energy in the places that matter?
Right.
Right? And so that's something that we really have to pay attention to. In terms of the loved ones who are there and are willing to receive the help, encourage them to reach out to their primary care doctor. Encourage them to seek therapy. A lot of times in the Black community, it's not something that's you know, readily thought about or readily even you know, sought out. But now the time is ripe. People are more aware. People are recognizing, like, what I was doing before is no longer working. I need to do something different. Right? And just as we saw in the resource video, there are a lot of places that people can seek out more affirming therapies, right, for the Black community with people who understand the struggle, right? Even if we, you know, go back to, you know, just transgenerational trauma that's been experienced, it's like you now have someone who is able to recognize that. You come in and you feel seen, right? So being able to encourage your loved ones to, you know, hey, here are some resources that you can utilize to get somebody who is probably going to get it when you walk in.
So what do you say to someone, because I'm a spiritual counselor for a halfway house for women and children, And occasionally when I do meet with them, you know, I would give them spiritual advice. However, there are times I say, I think you need to see a therapist, right? So when I offer that advice, sometimes the feedback will be, I don't want to see them because I don't trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. They're strangers to me. So I can understand where they're coming from because they got a whole lot of trauma in their lives.
Right, yeah.
So what do you say to someone who, knowing they need it, right? They need to speak to someone other than you or anybody else. But what do you say when you get that feedback?
When you get, there are always going to be people who are feeling a bit anxious, and you validate that anxiety. I understand that you feel that way. It is, of course, scary to meet someone new. Before you met me, you didn't know me.
Right.
And here we are,
Right.
Sitting and talking, right? And you trust me,
Right.
So remind yourself of some things that you've done in the past when you've met new people, right? But do this for you, because this is something that we know has been shown to be helpful, right? I have gone as far as I can go with you, and I think that you need to see someone else who may have more expertise in a certain area to address what it is that's going on for you. And if the barrier is, they're not Christian, or they don't understand my faith walk or my faith belief, there are Christian counselors. I myself am a Christian counselor that they can go and see, who's going to be able to understand them and understand their faith walk, okay? And so you want to just encourage them about, yes, you can find someone that, will understand where you're coming from. And if you find that it's not a good fit, there's nothing wrong with making a switch to seeing someone else. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Can
I'm sorry.
Can I just also add, like, those are some amazing points, right? Because we know that relationship has to do with what? Rapport building.
Yes.
It's building the rapport, it's building the trust, it's building, ethical boundaries and things of that nature. And I think that's what we can use to help, as you mentioned, coax someone, like, hey, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes talking to a stranger may actually be better than people around you that you know. It kind of gives you that break. It kind of gives you that release to then have another resource, another outlet. I want to speak to what if someone has, they've gone to therapy before, but they had such a terrible experience, traumatic experience, that now it has hindered their treatment. It has hindered where they're at. So now they're stuck in a place where it's no longer not just trust, right? But now it's another trauma added on, complexing what's already there. What do you say to that individual? Because I don't think we highlight that happens. And it's not to discourage, right? It's not to say, like, but things happen, right? As you mentioned, if this is not a good fit, sometimes do we stay longer than we need to because we trust this person so much? Or, like, what do you have to say in that aspect, in that regard?
We have to always honor ourselves, right? And what's important to us and what we know works for us. And we know ourselves best, right? And so if you find that there is a place that you are where you're not being valued or where you have been hurt, because we've heard of this too, right? Even in places that are supposed to be, sacred and safe spaces, right? We think of church, we think of, in the therapy room, it's supposed to be, a sacred and safe space. But there are times when hurt happens in those spaces. But it doesn't mean that you now need to cut off all of those avenues if you have found some help in them before. If there's a clinician that you have worked with and you felt like this is not, this person was not ethical in their practice, or it didn't work, there are avenues that you can go to report them if that's what needed to happen because there was something that occurred that, ethically should not have happened. You can do that. It doesn't mean that, next time you aren't going to be able to find someone that may work, right? You might want to do different research, right? Or even talk with other friends or family members who may be in treatment about what their experience is with the clinician that they're seeing. And then you can, request a referral, to that other clinician. Right? So it's not, an impossibility, but I would say continue to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
If something isn't working, you don't have to stay.
Yes.
You can make a decision to try somewhere else.
Try again.
Yes.
Yes.
Listen, it's very important to hear what Dr. Lovern is saying today. If you're unhappy, if you are going through this struggle, even if that therapist that you're seeing doesn't work for you, don't stop there. Continue to seek out the help that you need. Even report the situation. Listen, you don't want to stop life because life has value. Life has a meaning. Dr. Lovern, you say you have been doing this for so many years, the work that you do. How do you build, and you can tell me if you build a rapport with your clients. How do you get them in touch with what they're going through, and what are the ways and techniques that you would help a client?
Initially, when someone comes into my office, we have a whole bunch of paperwork that they fill out initially, right? Yes. Because we want to get basic stuff, right? Yes. That we don't necessarily want to have to, kind of like rehash. We have that all out on paper, right? We want to know, we want to get like basic things in terms of connections with people. Who are your supports? Have you been in treatment before? Are you on any medications? Are there any allergies that you may have? Is there a family history of mental illness, right? Because that can also help dictate what it is that we're looking at, right? And we also discuss whether there's any family history of any medical issues as well, because there's some medical issues that can mimic some mental health issues. So we want to pay attention to some of those things as well. So when you go in to see someone, you want to know that they're gathering, this information so that they can come up with a plan about how to treat you. I'm also requesting from them, why are you here? How did you get here? And what would improvement look like for you? And we have a scale where we're also asking them to complete the areas of the most concern for them at the time, right? Because we may come in a lot of times with our own preconceived notions about what may be going on, but I want to hear from you as the patient. I want you to tell me your story. I'm not coming in as an expert expecting, with this expectation that I know how I am going to, heal, cure, that's not my approach. I want to hear from you, and we build together on what's going to make the most sense for you, because it's not a one-size-fits-all model, right? But it's a non-judgmental, relaxed space where you can come in and be you and say whatever it is that you want to say in the way that you say it. So that you feel the most comfortable, right? And that you feel heard and seen.
Wow.
Okay? And so I try to create this open stance with the patients that I see so that they can feel comfortable. And I work across the lifespan. So from kids, as young as probably even 5, all the way up to, elderly people who are in their, like I think my oldest patient right now is probably in their late 60s, that I'm seeing now. And so there's always an open stance, right? And I'm learning from you. And there may be certain techniques that we're working on in terms of how to promote more relaxation, or how to manage some of your symptoms of anxiety. There are things that we may do in terms of exposure if you're feeling kind of nervous in social situations. So there are different things and different techniques that we talk about. But one of the other major things that I like to pay attention to is whether or not you're seeing your primary care doctor, what is your health really like?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that may be just going on physically in your body
Right,
that if those things are taken care of,
right.
you may feel, but your mood will be better.
Right. Yeah.
You'll feel better internally.
Wow.
You will have more energy,
Wow.
you know, and feel more motivated to do the things that you need to do.
So basically, you're saying it don't necessarily have to be just mentally, but what's going on with them physically.
Yes.
That makes so much
Yes,
sense.
yes.
You never think of it that way.
Right.
You know, because if you tackle what's going on with you physically, then mentally it wouldn't be as bad. That's a good point.
Yes, yes. And a lot of people don't even realize, when we think about how intricate our bodies were built, right? The word says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
Okay? Everything that we need to be able to function, God has already put in us and provided. And if we were to, sit back and really take stock, right, and look at in a holistic way about what we're doing to ourselves and what we're exposed to in our environment, and what we're putting in our bodies, right? What we're putting in our ear gate, our eye gate, all of this stuff. If we really stopped and took stock of all of that, we'd realize, wow, okay, if I eliminate this, if I eliminate that, if I add this in, right, and I add that in, and I make sure that I'm doing a little bit more of this, things will probably be a whole lot better.
That's why I created the Peace, Love, Judah Jam Festival to bring awareness with this series on mental health, finances, that's one of them. There's also nutrition, that's one of them, especially how we may eat, and then the wellness and wholeness of our body, right? So I want to go according to Scripture, Jeremiah 33:6, because he talks about how can we prosper in mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
So those things, when you say taking a holistic approach, seeing everything, because you're right, finances could make us feel a certain way. How we eat make us feel a certain way, right? And how we're not getting enough exercise, or how we're not, what you call doing yoga or exercising and doing all those great things that I saw Chantel doing the other day. And I was like, wow, this girl is doing her thing. And I'm pretty sure, especially from the book that you wrote, and how you're triumphing over everything that has gone on in your life, you can say that it really changed you mentally, would you say?
Yes, because as mentioned, so we have mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I love what you mentioned, and Scripture says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. The way God has made our bodies is so intricate. It's so amazing, how the heart. So now we're talking about the heart, right? The heart matters. The heart does what? It's a major organ that pumps blood throughout our bodies. If the heart stops, what happens? The mind no longer gets the oxygen that's needed, right? So that's why if someone's going through a heart attack or, CPR is necessary. You gotta resuscitate, so now we're applying, it's life. So we're applying this, right? If my heart is sick, the word says your heart is sick, the whole body's sick. Your eyes are sick, the body is sick, So we do have to be careful of what we're putting, what we're looking at, what we're seeing, what we're speaking, what we're doing. Personally, I cut out meat for about 3.5 years now, and I've never felt better, right? But there's other nutritional values. I can't just sit and eat junk food, right? It's null and void, So then I have to begin to eat right, being mindful what I put in my body. Because there are other conditions that can complicate, food complicates things. And the chemicals, okay, some people aren't gonna like this. The chemicals that are put in our foods and how it's processed, it takes effect on our bodies.
Right.
We begin to feel heavy.
Yes.
We begin to feel restless.
Right.
We get high blood pressure, diabetes.
Yes.
Meanwhile, heart disease, things like that. Meanwhile, if you stop, you listen to what God is saying, and you begin to cut things out, fasting, praying, God, what is it that I need? That's how I began. God, what is it that I need to shift or cut out? And it doesn't have to happen all at one time. You take your time with it because you begin to build, your tolerance for it. So that's what it was for me. And even with the books, the books that I've written, it's so now we're talking about the mental and the spiritual and emotional, right? I've taken care of my mental, right? I'm nurturing my spiritual, I'm nurturing these aspects. So now I need to take care of my emotional side, right? And continue to add my spiritual value to it. And one of my passions was, okay, I want to allow this to be a mirror. I want to be transparent with others and allow other people to create their story along with mine. My story isn't your story.
Right.
My journey isn't your journey.
That's right.
You have your own journey, but what you're doing is I'm opening myself up. I'm allowing, people in so that they can say, oh, I can do this.
Yes.
And it takes consistency.
That's right.
It's consistency, it's persistence.
Right.
You're not gonna feel like doing it every day. I don't feel like working out every day. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Amongst the other things that we lead very busy lives. I
Right.
lead a very busy life as well. But it's making that time, as you mentioned, Dr. Lovern, for yourself. That's my self-care.
Yes.
I have boundaries. I love saying no to things. That's my boundary. If I'm not able to do it, or in this capacity right now, respectfully, I have to say no for me.
Right.
Because an empty cup can't what? It
Right.
can't pour.
Can't pour. Exactly.
That's right. So, Dr. Lovern, tell the viewers, tell them one thing. If they have a loved one, even if for themselves, are going through the struggle with mental illness, what are the things they need to do and how to reach out?
So I would say to our viewers, first, just breathe. Sometimes you just need to sit back and breathe, and then make a plan. All right, and if you need help to make that plan, you can start out as simply as reaching out to a trusted doctor or another family member that you know who may be seeing a therapist, but start at least with your primary care doctor. Explain to them the concerns that you're having, that you feel that I think I would benefit from seeing someone. And then also, when you're with your doctor, also talk about, having blood work done to just see, am I deficient in anything? Because those kinds of things could also be causing some mood issues. Try to get yourself right first. Okay, get yourself right first, and then you're able to pour from that cup, right? Fill yourself up first, then you're able to pour. But even for the loved ones that you're concerned about, if they're your children, and you're still able to speak with their doctors or to speak with their school or school counselors about concerns that you have for them, make that step and reach out. Okay, but first you have to make sure that you're taking care of you.
Dr. Lovern, also, how can they get in contact with your office or any other agency that you are connected or affiliated with to seek that help?
Yes. So Empowerment Counseling and Psychotherapy Center, we have locations in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and our number is 866-754-4973, extension 103 or 143 to get a hold of our office staff so they can get you connected with a clinician. We're actively recruiting new clinicians at the moment so that we have enough people who will be able to serve your needs. I'm also at Boston Medical Center in the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Department for those individuals who are on the mass side. And so you can also reach out there to locate me. Again, I had listed Psychology Today, as well as Black men in psychology, as well as psychology for Black girls, as also resources that you can search out to find clinicians that may be able to help you.
Well, Dr. Lovern, thank you so much for being on this episode of Reflections TV. Thank you to everyone who is watching. I even thank my co-host, Chantel P. We will be back on next month talking about nutrition. Yes, nutrition, and we're going to be sitting with expert Takesha Williams on how we need to eat better. Again, tune in for Reflections TV series that's going to be held throughout August, and watch out for the Peace, Love, Judah Jam Festival that is going to be held on September 10th. This is Pastor Shirley Hood, and we all want you to have a blessed day.